if we jump into outline mode here, there's a lot of outlines that are kind of getting in our way. So let's just go ahead and select several of these here. I'm going to go ahead and select those right there, and let's go ahead and select, let's just go ahead and hide those with a Control 3. And I tell you what, let's jump out of outline mode here. Yeah, I think we can work with that. So now, in looking here at her eye socket, you can see here there's sort of this shadow that really gets dark right in this area. And you can see kind of these strand-like shadows like this. This is actually where her eyelid is pulling. The flesh is pulling on her eyelid and creating these little crevices where shadows are collecting. So we're going to kind of come in and hit some of these areas with shapes right now. So let's go ahead and grab our pencil tool, and let's go ahead and just hit D to reset to our default colors. I'll go ahead and get rid of that black stroke. And let's go ahead and just begin drawing some of these shapes in here. So I want to go ahead and start here. Now it looks like there's a real subtle shadow that actually extends all the way to about right there. So I want to come in and draw that one in first here. And we'll smooth that back just a little bit. We can always clean these shapes up where they really don't matter in between lessons. So we've drawn that shape in. Let's go ahead and draw in another shape. Let's come in here, deselect by control clicking away from that shape, and then we'll come in and draw in kind of this main shape right here, this darker shadow. So we'll come in and draw that in just sort of like that. And I tell you what, let's come in and draw in some of these other shapes, these shadows that are collecting in sort of these crevices of flesh here. So we're going to go ahead and draw one in right about there. And we'll just kind of draw in several of them here. And we'll draw one in right about there. So we've got several shapes overlapping each other here. We've got a lot of shapes to deal with as far as establishing color in there. So let's go ahead and draw in a few more shapes while we're in outline mode here. Now let's go ahead and maybe think about drawing in one right about here. And let's go ahead and think about maybe creating a shape underneath her eyelid here, because there is a bit of a shadow collecting right around in this area right here. So let's go ahead and draw in a shadow, and we'll start it right about here. And we'll just kind of come to a point right about there, and then close that off. So we got a lot of shapes that we've just created here. Now let's go ahead and jump out of outline mode and see what we've got. Now you can see here that, let me go ahead and bring that one to the front. We don't have any color applied to these. So let's go ahead and, just so we can make this easy, let's go ahead and jump back into outline mode, and let's go ahead and let's actually select the group that is the eye, and we'll go ahead and hide that as well. And let's go ahead and hide this shadow here. So now what we've got here, we can come in and select all of these shapes that we've just drawn, jump out of outline mode here, and let's just go ahead and give them a white color for right now. Alright, great. So now at this point, if we go ahead and bring our shapes back, Control Alt 3, you can see here how those shapes fit in with the shapes that we already have created. Now at this point, it's really all about applying an appropriate gradient to these shapes. So if we select this one and jump into outline mode, you can see here that this one kind of has a real subtle gradient to it, probably getting darker a little bit towards the eye shape here. So let's go ahead and apply a gradient to this, maybe a linear gradient. And let's go ahead and grab our gradient tool here and redraw that here. Alright, that looks okay. So now there's going to be some layering that's going to come and be a challenge for us at this point. So you can see here that this particular shape is, let me just go ahead and click there. It's actually not showing up much on top of, actually we're getting this little bitty edge right here that's created from this shadow behind it. So tell you what, let's go ahead and grab this shape right here. Let's bring it to the front, and let's go ahead and lock it with a Control 2. Alright, great. So now that we've done that, we can come in here and select each of these individual shapes. So let's go ahead and maybe start with this shape right here, and let's go ahead and apply a gradient to that as well. Now if we jump into outline mode, this one was pretty dark, so let's go ahead and apply maybe a linear gradient here as well. And let's go ahead and drag some different colors down. Let's go ahead and actually just create some different colors here. Let's go ahead and double click on that one. Maybe set this to a really deep desaturated purple color here. Something sort of like that. And we'll come over to this one and first bring the opacity up on that. And let's go ahead and grab some of these other shapes here. Let's go ahead and maybe grab each of those three right there, and let's go ahead and use our eyedropper tool to sample that exact same gradient. And let's go ahead and draw that up, sort of like that. So at this point, we're really just trying to produce some contrast here so we can start to establish what the colors should be for these shapes we've drawn. So let's come in here and maybe see if we can get a hold of this background shape again. Let's go ahead and draw that gradient, something like that. Just kind of tweak that around. Let's go ahead and grab this shape's gradient. Maybe even make that one a little darker. A little more saturated. And we'll come over here and grab these two shapes, and let's go ahead and sample that shape. So you can see how we're starting to create sort of this inset here where the eye socket is. Now I'm going to come in here and grab a couple of these smaller shapes here, and let's just take a look at their gradients. I'm actually going to rotate these around because the darkest part of these is going to probably be on the left side of them where that flap of skin is overlapping. So let's come in and bring this over, shorten it up some, and do the same thing for this one. And we'll just shorten that up as well. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. Now we've got one shape here that sort of has gotten lost in the transition. So let's come over and grab this shape here, and let's go ahead and maybe darken this up some. Let's come over and grab our hue saturation sliders here. And let's go ahead and maybe pull this one a little darker here so we can actually see what's going on with that shape. Now I can see that, so let's go ahead and grab our gradient tool. Let's go ahead and maybe stretch that gradient out some. Alright, that's looking pretty good for right now. Now we've got a few more white shapes here. So let's come in here and grab this one right here and maybe sample one of these shapes over here. Grab our gradient tool, spin that gradient around. Let's go ahead and put that darkest part of this gradient kind of up here on the opposite side of that, that eyelid. And shorten that up just a little bit. And maybe we come over here and grab this one. Let's actually use some of our swatches over here. So maybe we come in and let's apply a linear gradient to this one as well. And let's come in and bump that opacity up for that color stop. And maybe switch that around, reverse it. Now if we jump over here into outline mode, it's going to be much darker on this side, but we're still going to have a little bit of a shadow collecting here, with maybe the lightest part being right here, kind of where the eye bulges out in the center. So we'll just jump back out of outline mode here, and let's go ahead and maybe grab this color stop. Come in and apply a deep, kind of a deep purple to it, sort of like that. I'm going to come in and stretch this color stop to the center, and let's go ahead and duplicate this over. So we've got something like this going on. Now I'm going to kind of adjust these midpoints a little bit here. So we've got something like that going on. Now let's go ahead and adjust some of these colors just a little bit further. Let's come over here and maybe adjust this one, maybe warm it up just a little bit. Somewhere around there. And let's go ahead and grab this center one. And let's go ahead and darken it and warm it up a little bit as well. Alright, so you can see that shadow is starting to take shape, and then by adding these shapes, we're starting to kind of push the eye back a little bit. Now obviously we still need to add some shapes to the other eye, but before we do that, let's go ahead and create yet another level of shadow here, cast by the hair. Now we've got one level of shadow here, but if we look in outline mode, and let's go ahead and just hide that whole layer here. We've got really a shadow that not only stops right about here, but this shadow, even more subtle shadow, comes down right around into here. So we've got another layer of shadow that we could create. So let's bring that layer back here, jump out of outline mode. We'll grab our pencil tool. Let's just go ahead and set our fill color to white here. And I'm going to go ahead and create yet another shape here. Let's go ahead and jump into outline mode so we can kind of see where the shadow is over here. I'm going to bring a shape in right about here like so. Just kind of bring this around just like this. Alright, so we've got our shape. Let's jump back into preview mode here. Now let's go ahead and apply a linear gradient to this. Now obviously we're not going to use this gradient that we had just used here. Let's go ahead and use our gradient tool to set the direction of our gradient. And we'll just reverse that, and let's go ahead and pull a color stop off. Kind of get this gradient working for us here. I'm actually going to go ahead and set this shape over to multiply. Wow, that got pretty dark. So we need to come in here and maybe drop this opacity for this color stop down some. And then adjust our midpoint. Let me grab this gradient and reposition this just a little here. Alright, so you can see how that second shadow is really kind of working to kind of fill in the gaps between this really dark shadow that we've created and some of these shapes that we've created to deepen the eye socket here in the corner between the nose and the eye, and then even over on this other side. So I'll probably go ahead and tweak these shapes up some in between lessons, and I'll probably actually just go ahead and copy these and make them fit for her other eye. So in the next lesson when we pick up, we can kind of shift our focus to some of these shadows that define her cheekbones and her chin.